Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to the Crithalla Podcast. I am your host for this evening, Ol Skipflack, also known as Dan, and I am joined by my lovely co-host here. We'll start off with Stavi. How you doing, buddy? What's going on?
What's going on, Pally?
Oh,
how you doing?
What little accent is that?
I don't know, dude. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back.
Welcome back. And we also have Cosmic Key. Mike, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
I was this close to just doing an accent, but I'll stick with my normal voice. I'm doing great.
You definitely should have did the accent. We could just do accents the whole podcast if you want.
Yeah, let's offend as many people as possible.
Oh, yeah. That'll be one whole podcast. DMs and their accents.
Yeah.
Perfect.
DMs offend. That's our next podcast.
Yeah, DMs offend. Yeah.
DMs offend.
I like that.
Not, though.
Let's not, no.
I'd probably listen to it.
I would too.
Honestly, yeah, actually.
Well, welcome back to the Crithalla Podcast. Thank you guys so much for checking us out. We've been doing really, really good. Our downloads are getting better, and I'm really hyped.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for the
thank
positive
you, everybody.
Support so far.
Really appreciate it.
It's been awesome. All the comments, the reviews, the downloads, it's been awesome. But if this is the first time you have checked us out, welcome to the Crithalla Podcast. We run a show on here called DMs Discuss, where every episode we discuss a specific DM question. And today's an interesting one, but I don't want to forget, like I did the last podcast, our little setting for the video version of this podcast.
Oh, that's right, which you could check out on YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube.
Be sure to check out the Crithalla YouTube channel.
Yep, you got it.
Like and subscribe.
Mm-hmm. And today, we are in a town square.
Oh.
Yes.
Wow, it is nice out today.
It's beautiful out.
It's actually really gorgeous out right now.
Actually, if you listen really closely, it sounds like there's a festival beginning.
What?
Believe it
What
or
is
not.
that?
Yeah. You can see
festival?
Yes, you could see the festival banners floating in the wind as kids run through the streets with kites, and everyone's really excited. And you see I don't know, Argon the blacksmith banging his tools together, getting really excited, and you see Isabel, who owns the general store, and she's selling pennants of the town and all this crazy stuff, and there's this big festival going on. And as you turn and look and ask the old man sitting at the bench, what is this festival for? And he says, well, friends, this is a celebration of the town, and a celebration of NPCs!
Yeah!
Yeah, baby! This is an episode about NPCs. Was that good?
Hell
was
yeah,
that, was
dude.
that bad? Was that bad?
No, I love that you use DM things to introduce the topic for the day. We should do that more often.
I was very close to just looking for a pie eating contest and just staying there.
Yeah, we should just play right now. Forget it. We're in the town. Here we go. No. Yes, today's episode is about NPCs. NPCs are you sometimes think it's a very minor background thing, but in reality, they can be a lot more important than a lot of people think.
For sure.
So the question I would like to ask everyone is, first of all, what are your favorite methods to create NPCs? I don't know who wants to start off this one.
Well, I don't care who starts. I could start, but before we start, I just want to say, what do I have to roll in order to seduce the blacksmith?
He's extremely friendly and really charismatic. So
I'm trying to just get a discount. That's it. Like,
yeah, well,
I'm trying to hit it and quit it.
It's festival day. I mean, he's down for all the type of discounts if you're trying to, do a little shebang.
All right, sweet. Hold on, let me get my dice. I got a 14.
A 14?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good enough. He'll meet you in the back room.
Nice, dude.
Maybe you'll get a little longsword poke, huh?
I'm actually looking for like blunt weapons, you know what I'm saying?
Oh.
Yeah, bludgeoning damage, that sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This took a turn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to come back from the pie eating contest covered in pie going, everybody go. Where'd the blacksmith go? What's going on?
Isabel, where are you? What's going on?
So, favorite methods?
Favorite methods for creating NPCs. Yeah.
Well, what do you think, Mike? You want to go first?
I can go first.
Sure.
I personally, when I create NPCs, my favorite method is, well, of course, after the setting is established in some form, because you have to populate it, I start thinking, like, what's going on in the world, and then who's doing the things that are making things go on in the world, and then things just sort of, like, fall into place. I mean, I personally think there's two types of NPCs. There's the NPCs the DM makes himself for his world. And then there's, I like to call them player NPCs, because sometimes players just go to a store and then they start talking to the blacksmith. And you never had a personality for the blacksmith or a name, but the way they interact with the blacksmith interacts back, that blacksmith now becomes an NPC, pretty much created by the players. So, when I create NPCs myself, it's all about what motivations I need to move my world forward. If I need a villain, do I need a corrupt politician? Do I need an orc horde leader that, like, you know, lives in the wilderness? And then it just flows from there. And I primarily start, even before stats, I start with personality and, like, how they speak, their inflections, their body language, because that's what I'm pretty much going to be using at the table. I can't just tell the group, he's got a 17 to strength. I have to sort of show them he's strong or show them he's conniving. So I wind up just walking back and forth in my house, pacing, like doing weird hand gestures, talking as the NPCs, as if they were interacting, just to get it solid. And that's pretty much it. So if I'm not committed after that, I have a good NPC raring to go.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you always need those classic, like for instance, like, oh, the princess got stolen, so you need that princess character, and you need that king character that you go and see after you save the princess and stuff like that. But I like how you put that, the player NPCs, because I always notice that with even NPCs that you create, sometimes they also become those player NPCs. Like, you had a general idea of what you wanted to do with them, but the players take it in such a crazy direction, and you go with it, and all of a sudden, the character that you created is now their own and your own at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it feels like when you develop an NPC that is interesting enough, the players also project sort of like a sphere of influence around the development of that NPC. And if that NPC is interesting enough, this is a little bit off topic, but very quickly, God forbid anything should happen to your player characters, you can now use that NPC as a player character because people are already familiar with them. They know their goals, they know their personality, they know their capabilities theoretically. So yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Definitely. Yeah, what about you, Stavi? What are your favorite methods to use?
So the first thing that I do when I'm developing my NPCs is I think about the location that the players are going to be spending most of their time in. In our current OSE campaign, which is BX, or Basic Expert D&D, 0 edition, if you will, we are currently playing through the module of the Keep on the Borderlands, which is but a smaller module that is implanted within my larger campaign. And as I said during game, you guys are free to leave that keep entirely and go back to, like, civilization far down to the south if you want and completely neglect all of that. But knowing that this is the only sanctuary in that area, you're going to be spending a lot of time here. And so the book itself provides NPCs, but it does it in a very interesting way. There is sort of like a hierarchy of NPCs based on what they do, what they facilitate, you know? So you have, like, your captain of the guard, right? You have the chastelan the chastelan of the entire keep. You got a cleric or a healer in the place. You got these very specific NPCs that you know that the players are going to be interacting with more than others. So, like, the shopkeeper's family, probably not going to interact with them very much, so you don't really need to think of names or motivations or anything like that for these people, unless you want to tie it into some sort of side quest. But how the book does it, and I think this is very interesting, and I kind of want to do this moving forward now that I've learned about this. All of the NPCs in that book are completely unnamed. There is not a name for any of the NPCs. It just tells you who they are, what their stats are. By who they are, I mean what their position is within this keep. And that's about it. It tells you what their stats, what equipment they have, and maybe, I think only one character, it tells you what their personality is. And that's it. It kind of leaves the door open for the DM as the players are playing and interacting, much like what Mike said. They create these PNPCs based on how they talk to them. Like when we were playing, right, the retainers that you guys met at the tavern, they were randomly generated, and so was their personality, and so were their names. So I don't know. I like things to be a little bit more random and kind of on a dice roll, if it makes sense. If I rolled and they were like chaotic, elf, magic users or something like that. Well, I know that in my campaign, elves aren't really around. They're there, but they're not mingling with man, so that wouldn't make sense. But much like what Mike does, and I think this is also very interesting, and I like that he does this, he gets into the mind frame, the mindset of that NPC, and thinks, okay, this is a person who works at the forge. He's the only forge worker here. He's the only armor smith, weaponsmith. He's got to contend with adventurers who are coming in. He's got to contend with the guard who constantly keep coming in to repair and maintain their armor. He's probably under a lot of stress because he's the only person there. He probably has a very short attitude or very short tolerance for stupidity and stupid people. So if people come in there asking him 21 questions and like touching all of his things, he's probably going to get really snippy about that. And so playing it off of the environment as well is kind of how I mold and shape these NPCs as time goes on.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, yeah, like the environment, where they're coming from, what they're doing, the pressure of the town maybe, or something like that. Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and like other outside influences too, like the economy. Like if your town is suffering because farms are being burned or pillaged, or if like the magistrate or whoever it is, the duke or whomever, is embezzling money and like taking a large sum of taxes from the people, and there isn't enough representation or like upkeep of the town, like roads and buildings and guards or anything like that, the NPCs are going to feel that pressure. And it's worthwhile to take a step back as a DM and think for a second, like, how do my NPCs live in this environment that I've created? And how would they react to that environment? How would they react to new people coming into that environment and throwing their weight around and acting like they're hot shit because they're adventurers?
Yeah.
So, thinking outside the box and not just putting, here's generic man number one, here's his name, and he's just friendly and wants to sell you things.
Yeah.
It's a good basis, but you should definitely evolve upon that, and the players can definitely help.
Right.
And if you have any trouble doing any of that as like a new DM on your own, definitely I'm a sucker for random charts as well.
Oh,
like,
yes.
Double down on random charts, or literally make your own. Like if you know what the town is, make a random chart of your own. It could just be roll a d20 and make your own chart of 20 options of the type of people that would populate this town, like their personalities, what their outlooks, and just make your own. I make my own charts constantly. It's really handy, and for starting out, it's definitely useful.
Yeah. I was just about to say that too. That randomness can actually be extremely beneficial, because randomness brings creativity. And you just having a random baseline of like, okay, here's this, here's that, let's bring it together. Now you have to try to create that in your world, and that's really interesting, because in my campaign right now, I have a very specific town that the players are from, and we have specific characters. But down the line, without spoiling too much, down the line, it will become a lot more general. The world's going to get a lot bigger, and they're going to be visiting a lot more towns. And I was actually thinking about doing something similar of like creating a random, NPC chart or something like that, just to keep it easy for me, but at the same time kind of maybe keeps me on my toes a little bit. Just roll a couple dice. Okay, okay, all right, got to get into it right now. This is what the character's like. Here we go. That it really does. It draws creativity out of you and the players.
Yeah, I agree. And if I can make a recommendation, if you're going to be doing random tables, have different columns for each NPC that you're generating, right? So if you're going to do the D20 thing, have 1 through 20, and then have that be personality. Then have a second column that says like behaviors, like or how they react to react to the players, or have another one, or in addition, have another one that says what they are doing when the players meet them. So then you could have the personality, their disposition, and what they are doing when the players meet them. And those 3 things, you could probably add more and think of other ones yourself or swap out ones.
Yeah.
But first impressions really do make a lasting impact on the player's perception of these NPCs. And so if you roll it randomly, the players may think, oh, this guy is super trustworthy. And then you can flip it on them and be like, no, actually.
Actually, he's a huge jerk.
Yeah. No, I mean, like he'll be friendly, but he's probably like a spy for the big bad or something like that who infiltrated the town and like, wants to see whatever his agendas are.
Yeah.
Or you can have somebody who's a complete jerk off when you first meet him, but he winds up becoming like one of the most trustworthy people. And he has a reason for being a jerk off because maybe something happened to him in his past or whatever. And you could really, really flesh that out. So definitely random tables, 100%. That's definitely a way to go if you want quick and dirty NPCs just on the fly.
And also use that for buildings and structures and areas as well, because this is going to sound weird, but I know you two will get it, but the area is just as much of an NPC as like a breathing creature. Like the way you describe the tavern, from its name to the creak of the floorboards to who populates it, what they're serving, the building is an NPC as well. Yeah. So all of that can be used for environment as well as individuals.
Right, because if you think about it, right, like, when you're making this setting that the players are going into, there's a whole thing that goes into it. You have to look at the building and what it looks like and the feel and the vibe and the people that are in there. So the NPCs, the building itself, the town itself, it's all part of that setting.
Agreed. And don't be afraid to use your senses when you're using those descriptors either. Mm-hmm. And this could apply to both NPCs and the town or the building that they're in, right? Because you can see, right? Okay, the walls are made of wood, naturally. You can hear the clinking of tankards hitting the wooden tables and all this other stuff and people chattering. But then there's also smell. It smells pretty aromatic. They're cooking food here. People are eating, but there's like a hint of body odor because some of these adventurers clearly have not bathed in a while. But it's being more or less overtaken by the smell of this freshly baked bread or like these fruit pastries or whatever. So do the same thing for that.
Yeah, descriptors are super important. Yeah.
Yeah.
They really are. Because aside from how they react to the players and aside from how they talk and how they portray themselves, how they look, how they smell, how they sound, their voices, they're gruff or whatever, and they mumble a lot or they're drunk or have like a stupor about them, that also ties into the first impression that players have of these characters.
True. Very true.
And again, random tables, man. Random tables. Just grab like 4 D20s, throw them on the table, and then go right down the line and be like, okay, that's an NPC.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to be flowery with it. Like I have an NPC called the Grinning Rot, and when they first saw him, his skin is very pale and unmoving, almost like a mask. So the way I described it was his skin looks cold as a porcelain doll left out in the snow. And that stuck with the group.
That's cool.
And it freaked them out.
That kind of reminds me of the doll from Bloodborne, from the Hunter's Rest, or The doll that you talk to level up.
Oh,
in
yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
that pale, like, unmoving kind of face.
Yeah.
That's what I picture when you describe that.
That's pretty cool. That's eerie.
Yeah, and that like stuck with them. I mean, I could have just said it's cold, but
Yeah.
you might as well tell a story with the descriptions as well.
Yeah. That extra descriptor really puts an impact on what the players are seeing and feeling. Definitely.
Mm-hmm. And to build off of that too, I don't want to throw around the Matt Mercer effect, because that definitely has like a lot of connotations throughout the D&D community of people discussing, especially DMs all over the internet, you know, whether or not the Mercer effect is a real thing. But it's hard to deny that he does an exceptional job at taking his time to explain things in very flowery details.
Oh, yeah.
And it's all very methodical and very well planned and thought out. You don't really need to get to that level. You don't feel like every single NPC or every single building or every single creature or any encounter that your players may get into, whether it's a hostile combat or just a social encounter, don't ever feel like that you need to go to the level that Matt Mercer does, because it's very apparent that they are more or less partnered with Wizards of the Coast. They are a huge budgeted what am I thinking? Like a medium for entertainment. Like their whole purpose, how they run their game, is specifically for people to watch and like be entertained and enjoy it.
They're a commodity.
They are a commodity.
Right.
They really are. And so they have to, like Matt especially needs to do it in such a way where anybody who is watching can instantly be gripped into it. You don't need to do that. You can be flowery. You can do that by all means, but just be careful on how much energy you waste doing that, because sometimes it could definitely bog the game down a lot if you're spending too much time talking about each individual intricate little water stains on the walls from the leaking ceiling above when it rains on a cold, stormy night. You know, you don't have to.
Sometimes it's not super necessary.
Yeah, same thing with the random charts. There's no need for a chart if the person's left or right-handed. There's no need for a chart for the size of the irises of their eye. Like, don't go crazy with the charts.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to describe an NPC, I would recommend 1, maybe 2, maybe 3, but definitely not more than that. Very unique attributes of that character.
Yeah.
They wear an eye patch, or they have bright red hair, or you know, that's something that's out of the ordinary that players can be like, I don't remember that person's name, but I remember that they had this about them.
Yeah.
Remember that guy with the scar that we met at the bar? Besides it rhyming, that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, remember that beggar that we met with the limp?
Yeah.
The scrawny guy with the limp, you know, the veteran or whatever, you know, like little descriptors.
You never forget it, you know? It's always there.
If you compact too much information on one particular character, then they don't become unique anymore. They kind of become like this jack of all things. And I don't know, I think it takes away sort of like the mystery and the magic of your NPCs if you add too much to it.
Definitely. I mean, that's going into that. One of my methods I like to use is when I'm creating an NPC, thinking about what the main purpose of that NPC is. Because once you have the main purpose, then you can build off of that. Like, is it just an NPC that sells weapons? Okay, sure. Then it doesn't have to get as descriptive or as interesting. It can be, like you said, maybe the 1 or 2 descriptors of, an eye patch or something like that. Just, you know, you don't forget it, but at the same time, you probably won't remember his name. But if you're looking for more of a more prominent NPC, then you give him the purpose, and then you build off of that. What I like to do is you know, do the purpose, and then afterwards I'll give him a personality. And I like to feel out how the players respond to certain personalities. So I knew, like, when I was building some of my characters, I had a purpose, a general idea of how I wanted them to act, and kind of a little bit of an appearance, but not really. Just kind of, you know, oh, this is a guy, this is a girl, this is, you know, he has this, he has that. Here's his skills. and then just let the players create it themselves. So like for like my king of my town that I created, I knew his purpose. I still know his purpose, what he needs to do to get the players to a certain extent in the campaign. But I wanted him to be a little goofy. So I said, all right, he can be that valiant and the king. He's just trying to be the best guy he possibly can and this and that. But he's a little goofball. Maybe he trips up a little bit every once in a while, or he's just like completely oblivious to something. And then the players go off of that. Like I know my one player, Laura, she loves to mess with the king, and he's just like, oh, well, you know, I'm a really nice guy, so I'll let it slide, and it's turned into this whole thing now where he's just like a huge goofball. And
we call him Candy.
Yeah,
he's King Andy. And she started calling him Candy, so he's Candy.
Candy, yeah. His name is King Andrew Devalki, and then it went to King Andy, then King Candy, and now it's just Candy, and he's just okay with it.
And that's a great example of the players building out your NPCs for you.
Exactly.
Simply just by interacting with what already is established.
Yeah, exactly.
And I will say this, Dan, that whenever, even if it's a non-story NPC, whenever you introduce an NPC at all in your games, it's always an event.
Yeah, it is.
They always, it's like a fighting game. It's like new challenger appears, and like a new NPC shows up, and we're like, ooh, who's this one? And we always want to know who this character is, even if it's just someone sweeping the ground, lighting the lamps outside on the street. We're like, let's see what's up with this guy.
Yeah, there are times where like I will describe a setting, and there's just like two people at a bar or something like that. But then the players come in and go, oh, I'm going to go talk to that guy. And I'm like, oh, shoot. I didn't write this. All right, here we go. Just off the cuff. Here we go. And, I mean, like the King's two guards, Jim and Jack. Jim's like this guy. He's just like a straight up, like really good soldier. And then Jack is trying to live up to how good Jim is, right? Originally, they were just guys that were at the castle where the princess was captured, and they were just gonna, lead the players out. But the players made them so important that the king, knighted them. It was like, oh, you guys are great. You guys are now my left and right hands.
Yeah, I latched on to Jack.
Yes.
And I've been sort of his mentor, even though I'm a gnome wizard. If I find magic items that will benefit him, I give them to Jack. And I gave him like a +1 sword, and I was like, here, this is good for you. And then I try to help him.
Yeah, because like Jim was the guy that led you guys out, so he became like the right hand of the king. But like you keep feeding Jack with all of this stuff, and he's like becoming like more confident now, and he really wants to be just as good as Jim, and maybe even better one day. And it's that natural player to NPC progression that is just so interesting.
Next up, you have to roll a character sheet and make him an actual, like, full-fledged character.
Like a straight-up character.
A straight-up character. And then, like, if a player character winds up dying or something, you'd be like, you don't need to roll anybody. Here's your next character.
It's Jack!
It's Jack, yeah.
If my character dies, if Horatio dies, I will gladly be Jack. I will say, in honor of Horatio, I will adventure.
I will be Jack.
I literally got so excited at that notion, I swallowed my spit wrong.
It's an exciting thing.
It is.
It really is.
And, I want to say, too, like, again, with every aspect, every facet of world creation and world generation as a dungeon master, NPC creation can be and should be just as interesting. It should be just as engaging. It should be just as fun as creating a town, as creating a dungeon, as creating encounters with other monsters or whatever out in the wilds, setting up very specific ambushes or, whatever. The NPCs are great, though, because unlike encounters and sometimes dungeons, they're always reoccurring.
Yeah.
You can see an evolution of that. And that's one of the topics that we're going to talk about in a little bit is like some of our favorite NPCs that we've created.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. And yeah, man. I mean, I'm sure we all have some pretty fantastic NPCs that we've created. I can think off the top of my head at least 3 of them that I've made that even all these years later.
Well, you know what? Hey, you know what? We're on it. Let's just get into it. We'll start with you, Stabby. Go ahead.
Segue.
Let's go.
Yeah, sure. But before I get into that, I think it's a good time now to mention to all of our listeners and potentially viewers on YouTube that Crithalla does have a Facebook page. We just did a giveaway.
Yep.
For a custom dice tray for all of the fans. Also, who was the winner? What was his name?
Danny from Tennessee. Congratulations, pal.
Yeah, Danny from Tennessee.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Woo! Actually, just sent that one out today to him. So I hope he enjoys.
Right on.
Nice.
Yeah, man. And if you, Danny, listen to me, Danny.
Danny.
Hey, Dan, listen. When you get that dice tray and you play your games, take some pictures and tag us.
Yep.
Oh, for sure.
Crithalla D&D memes.
Yep.
That's the Facebook page.
And of course, we have a YouTube where you guys can watch this episode and all of our other episodes, as well as any reviews that Dan has done and any future unboxings and other reviews that are going to be coming down the pipeline. You can watch all of that.
There's a recent one on those minis, those 2D minis, which are fantastic.
The skinny minis, yes. The
Yeah.
skinny minis. I love them.
Skinny minis.
Yep.
They really are pretty awesome.
They are.
I like how you had the Lazy Susan where they were like spinning. Like
Dude, that's like my favorite thing. I love that bad boy. The perfect way to just show off something. I love them so much.
Dude, I saw that and I was like, wow, it feels like I'm watching one of those like late night like TV, shows where like they sell knives and stuff.
Yeah.
And they have like the
It spins
It's
really
like-
slowly, the elevator music in the background.
right. But yeah, be sure to check out all of that stuff, guys. Check out our socials, show some support, leave some comments, leave some reviews. All of our podcast audio is available on Spotify. It's available on what else, Dan?
Apple Music, Pandora, Google Podcasts. It's all over the place. All over the place.
So
Also,
if you have
by all means, tell us what you want to hear as well. If you have
Yes.
questions you want us to cover or discuss, or things you have issues with, or if it's from anything related to DMing or running games or role playing in general, and any input or ideas, and if what you guys want to hear, we're more than willing to talk about it.
Yeah, feedback is king, dude. Seriously.
Sure.
Big time.
And more than that, though, we definitely want to build a inclusive environment where DMs of all experience levels from all editions of tabletop RPGs can come together, share ideas, bounce ideas off of each other, ask questions, that sort of thing, get some feedback, even for your own campaigns. So, feel free to engage with us, and we'll more than happily respond to you guys when we can, and give some insight, especially during like podcasts and stuff.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely.
So, no, but genuinely, thank you everybody who's been watching and supporting us.
It's been awesome so far. This whole journey
It
with
would
you guys
be,
and everybody.
It definitely has been fantastic, and it would also be super cool to do like a Q&A episode.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
If we get a lot of questions, we could like go through them at like during the episode. I think that would be really fun.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I
Let
agree.
us know if you're interested in that at all. For sure.
Definitely. So, that being said, okay, some of my favorite NPCs that I've created, NPCs that have stood the test of time.
Yes.
And over many years have continued to grow and evolve and permeate through all of my campaigns, even though that character is not related to any of them. Yes.
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 Well, I would have to say, hands down, you may disagree because I know that you have a favorite of mine.
I do.
Yeah. But I would have to say Shio.
Oh yeah, I loved Shio, man.
It's unfortunate because I didn't really have the opportunity to really expand what I wanted to do with him. For context, guys, Shio, who I got the name from, it was like an inspiration from the Elder Scrolls with the god of madness, Sheogorath. And I kind of took the same idea, the same mannerisms, the same even look of what Sheogorath looks like before he turns into Jigalag or whatever. And he's pretty much just this man, old white man, very kind of spicy and loud and obnoxious. And he's, coiffed white hair with like a trimmed white beard, very kind of sharp face angles, and, kind of older.
He had that really like New York accent to him.
Yeah, he really did, man. He had like this hardcore like Brooklyn kind of like thing going on with him. But he was more or less like a disembodied head in a magical box, and then that's how the players found him. So I got that idea from the Legend of Drizzt novels, because I think it was in the second book. Drizzt finds the obsidian or the onyx panther trinket, who winds up becoming Guinevere, his trusty panther companion, who comes in from like some sort of shadow realm or what have you. And I got kind of like that same idea, but for Shio. So he was a disembodied head. Think of like Jambi the genie.
Yeah.
But he was in like this magical box that contained him. And I had all these plans for him, and like he helped interacting with the party. He gave them insight. He was very knowledgeable on stuff. That was sort of my way as a DM to metagame for the players without flat out telling them. I would rather like this all-knowing NPC be the one to be like, okay, well, everybody here is new to D&D.
Yeah, because we all were. All of us were new.
Yeah, at that point, we definitely were. And so, like, I wanted to help. I wanted to assist in a way that didn't break immersion. So I created more or less an NPC who can do that for me, but also be interesting enough to where, 8 years later, we're still talking about him in a podcast.
Yeah.
And I had some grand plans for him, man. And it's just, it's unfortunate. And that's kind of the way that things go, where you don't really get a chance to really flesh out certain NPCs. But sometimes that's okay. But yeah, I would have to say Shio is probably my... Do you want me to spoil what I had planned for him?
Hell yeah, dude. Go for it.
After all these years?
Unless you want to bring him back one day.
I don't know if I will. I might, but no, I'm going to spoil what I had planned for him, because even if I do bring him back as like a reoccurring NPC, he's not going to have the same goals as he did when we first started playing.
Right.
But essentially he was a god of sorts. He was like somebody who was very powerful magically, who tried to use the arcane, the mystery of the arcane and the power of the arcane to force himself into a state of ascension, to basically bring himself to the same level, equal footing as the gods of my world. He would have became a false god. But in his hubris, he screwed up big time. And as a result, he was forever banished into this box and left decaying, not physically, but like esoterically decaying in this box in isolation in like the deep, dark corners of the world where the players found him. But his ultimate goal was to befriend these players and convince them over time, sort of like, if you think of like how Sauron, if you read Tolkien lore, sort of like how Sauron poisoned the minds of the Noldor elves and the Númenóreans into like over time becoming evil and planting conspiracies and stuff into their brain. That's what Shio was going to do. He was going to have you guys systematically perform these actions that would allow him to re-enter the mortal world, so that way he can attempt his reascension.
That's wild.
And claim dominion over the entire world, or over the entire region of this world, the continent, whatever his goals and ambitions were at that time. Yeah, and he was going to give you one opportunity to join him as his acolytes. And if you felt like it was too evil or wrong or anything like that, his next attempt would have been either convincing you by force or killing you outright.
Wow, that's wild.
That's what his entire thing was. He wanted to manipulate you guys into bringing him back so he can try his reascension ritual.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that's my character.
That's a really cool story.
I'm glad you like it.
And I gotta say, because I remember when I was the player, right? My character freaking fell in love with Shio. I loved Shio. He was like my favorite character. And I went out and bought a little, like, it was like a Jack-in-the-Box miniature.
That's right.
And I broke off the jack that was in the box, and I bought generic heads that you would use for, like, I think maybe like Warhammer or something.
Sure.
And I put them together to make Shio. So
as a mini.
So to have not only you make this like cool character, for the player to go out and make a miniature for that character because he loves him so much, that's a good character.
That's dedication right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I had so much fun with him.
Yeah, he was great. What about you, Mike?
Let's see. I have to go through my old man brain.
Yes.
Well, there's actually some recent ones that I've been really liking a lot. The character that I mentioned before, that's, skin was as cold as a porcelain doll left in the snow. He's called the Grinning Rot.
Mm-hmm.
And he's responsible for this war years ago in my setting called the Eventide War, where he led his tattered minions to drag everyone, kicking and screaming into the Hollow Night. And he's undead, and his motivations back then, I'm not going to tell, he has motivations now, but, my players might be listening.
Yeah.
So his motivations back then was basically to rot the mortal world so much that the ethereal realms of the gods would come crashing down. And he failed. Of course, everything's fine. But he's come back, because you can never really get rid of rot. And he's latched on to one of my players, and he's been seducing her, and he's now starting to spread to the other players, trying to seduce them and woo them over to his side. And he's very swarmy when he shows up. He has like black, slick back hair, perfect white features, almost cataracts eyes, but the largest smile. And I kind of modeled him after that singer Tom Jones in a fashion, if anyone knows. So when he shows up, he literally, the first thing he said in the game was, "What's new, Pussycat?" to one of the players. And because that's one of his songs. And he's always very seductive, and he always makes good points that they just don't want to agree with, but they know he's no good, and he's steadily trying to turn the group against itself. He hasn't fought them yet. It's all just been seduction and innuendo and charm, and I can show you how things can be better, sort of. And I don't know. The rot has been spreading in the group, and it's a fun thing to see.
That's cool.
I dig all of that, actually.
Yeah.
Can I just say that Tom Jones looks like, I'm looking up a picture of him right now. If you want to throw up a picture of Tom Jones, bada bing, there he is.
There's Tom Jones.
That's Tom Jones. Tell me why he looks like a combination of Tim Curry and Billy Crystal. He
wow.
really kind of does.
Oh my God, he really does.
He kind of reminds me of like Tim Curry and Billy Crystal. And his older pictures from like the 70s, he kind of looks like David Hasselhoff.
Yes. Yep. Wow. Yeah.
Holy crap.
Black hair and everything. Look at him.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Nice suit too.
Wait, hold up. Hey, pal. Jeez.
Yeah, hey. Slow down, Tom Jones.
My God. That's cool. I really like how you have I like how you have an NPC that's like slowly corrupting your players. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
In a seductive way. That's pretty cool.
And whenever he shows up, he shows up like super cinematically. Like, you'll just see a grin in the darkness, and then he walks out of the shadow from a corner. Or once he was talking to another player, not the one that he's obsessed with, but someone else in the group. And this player was a warlock and was considering switching patrons. So the Grinning Rot loves that. He wants to be worshipped and he wants followers. So he said, I can show you more. I think what he told him specifically is, with your patron, you're a pawn, but you'll still be a pawn with me, but I'll get you to the end of the board. And the player was like, okay. But as he's talking to him, he's outside. Actually, the other player he's obsessed with is Laura, the character that she plays in my game. And as they're talking outside her door, he's just trailing his finger across the wood of her door, leaving slight rotted wood as he touches the door, because he's obsessed with her. And
oh, damn.
Yeah, he's basically using the group to wear her down. And they've already figured this out, but they can't resist him because he's making good points.
Interesting. Oh, that's really cool.
So, yeah, so he's been my favorite lately. And I have his whole, like, how he became to be and, what his end goal is, but it just hasn't come up. So...
And it will, eventually.
It will.
You keep him as a reoccurring primary character within the campaign, and these things tend to flesh themselves out over time.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. I really dig that.
Me too.
What about you, Dan?
Yeah, what you got, Dan?
What was your favorite, memorable, most awesome NPC that you've created?
Ooh, okay. So again, new DM here. Hi. I haven't made a ton of characters, and Mike is one of my players, so I don't want to spoil too much.
Okay, I'll leave.
No, you stay right there.
Get back here.
Okay, I'll come back. I'm here. Okay.
But there's two that come to mind. The first one is Pinless Nipster. First of all, because his name is actually a spin-off of my dog's name. I always thought that was funny. My dog's name is Dallas, and his nickname is Pinky. So I took Pin and Lass and put it together. And he's a little nippy guy, so I call his last name's Nipster.
I love that.
And,
okay.
What the players know about him right now is he is this very powerful magic user. They don't know exactly what he is yet. He's this very powerful magic user, and he runs these dungeons, his self-made dungeons with different puzzles and riddles, and there's enemies all over the place. And what the players found out going through one of his first dungeons is it's like a oh man, what's that movie? I can't think of the movie right now, but basically what it is there's a huge audience watching these players go through these dungeons, and there's bets going on the side, and so essentially Pinless owns this huge company of like an audience, dungeoneers going through an adventure, and you could place your bets on if they'll die or will they get through this puzzle specifically or something like that. And these players are never willing to do this. They are captured, put into these dungeons without any knowledge of what's going on until they get to the very end of each dungeon, which then they come out and they see the whole audience, and there's always a big battle at the end. And this has happened a couple of times now. So the players have caught on whenever they suddenly wake up in a dungeon. It's like, oh, geez, here's Pinless again, here we go again. And he comes out in his beautiful robes and goes, hello, players. And he's always very excited, and they hate him to death. But he's becoming more of a prominent character in the story because more of the evil that's coming into our world, somehow he's linked. They've told him he's said a couple of pieces here and there because he's starting to like them. They're getting through a lot of his dungeons, and he's kind of taking a liking to them. So he's starting to reveal some information about the evil going on in this world. So again, don't want to spoil too much, but It's a developing character that I'm really excited about to bring out into the forefront, and I've really been loving him specifically because there's a lot going on with him. It's been a lot of fun.
My first time playing one of your games, Dan, when I was playing Azad.
Yes.
That was a pinless dungeon that we did.
That was indeed a pinless dungeon. Yep.
Yeah, and I think the movie you're thinking of is Hostel.
Hostel, thank you. Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking of.
And you actually like congratulated me and my character because I, as a goblin warlock, I had like some kind of like shadow step or misty step or blink or whatever, and I blinked onto his platform and I was able to see into like where he comes from.
Yeah.
And you mentioned it to everybody in the party that it was like a series of holes or like hallways or something like that. It was like everything was kind of like interconnected or and then he was like, you shouldn't be up here, and then he kicks me off the the platform.
Yeah, you revealed that like when you look backstage, essentially it's just this massively dark area. Like, if you were to, like, be in a video game and, like, pan out, like, outside and, like, it just goes all black and all you see is, like, the whole map, that's essentially what you saw. And,
the back rooms.
The back rooms, exactly.
The back rooms.
And it's all these tunnels and stuff, and it's immaculate how huge and giant this thing is. You don't have any idea where it could possibly be. It might not even be on the same realm. You don't even know. Or plane of existence, you know?
As a player, I love him. But my character Horatio would not spit on him to put him out if he was on fire. He hates him. Because Horatio's very orderly, and this man shows up and ruins our festivals. Yeah, takes me out of my house.
Oh God, I hope he doesn't show up during this podcast while we're here in the town square during a festival.
Hello.
No. Oh no,
it's his eye once again.
God.
And that's what I love too. He's just like he's like almost like a jester type character. He's very like goofy and like, but like gestury. Like he likes to play tricks.
Like a marionette kind of like.
Yeah.
Whenever he shows up, my character's head immediately goes down and I sigh. And I'm just like, ugh.
That's the reaction I want. That's good.
Yeah. But as a player, I'm like, ooh, woo.
Yeah, he's and especially getting later into the campaign, he's definitely going to be an interesting character to play with for sure. He's very open-ended right now. He's very mysterious, so I can go a lot of ways with him.
And that's a good place to be at, leaving your NPCs as sort of like an established toolbox, somewhat. Yeah. You know, where they could be very adaptable, or they can be rather adapted to different situations as the story progresses and unfolds. Your initial plans may be, oh, I'm going to make this guy sort of like an antagonist. I'm going to make him like the heel of this story.
Yeah.
And then something happens where like the player's like, I kind of dig that guy. And then you're like, shit. I guess I'll make him like an anti-hero then. And then that doesn't work because the players force him to be good and do good things. And you're like, shit.
Now he's nice. Damn it. That's not what I wanted.
Now I guess he's like a face. Now,
yeah. A baby face,
like,
yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh no. So it's like, I did not plan for this. I actually planned for the opposite, but the players took it and they ran with it. And like a good, in my opinion, and I could be wrong and you guys may disagree, but I feel like a good NPC, just generally speaking, a good NPC is a character that the players can, number one, first and foremost, interact with, and interact with effectively. Sure, you can go up to somebody and be like, hi, then you could be like, oh, he says hello and waves and then goes back to whatever he's doing. That's not very interesting. So definitely somebody who's interactive, somebody who is memorable in one way or another, like how we were talking about before, whether it's physical features or how they sound or how they smell or how they look or whatever. And also, and this is getting more on like DM advanced, right? If this is DM's discussed, this is like more advanced stuff.
Yeah.
That is like definitely allowing him to be a versatile NPC. And it's not as hard as it sounds, right? Like, depending on how the setup is, like, you could genuinely just have him be, like, out of nowhere, a main proponent of your story, even though he was, like, some sort of background character at first.
Right.
You know, and that helps when whoever you're talking about or whoever your NPC is already pre-established in your game world. Because if it's like some random that your characters meet and then all of a sudden he's like the biggest guy in your entire campaign, it's like, well, then how come we haven't heard of him before now?
Right.
It's been like 14 sessions or 70 hours into this game, and we're only now just hearing about this guy.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting you bring this up because before we end, I just wanted to touch on this, the importance of the NPC, right?
Oh, right.
I really feel that NPCs are a major thing that and a great tool for a DM to use, because you can have this massive world and all these things going on in these different locations and stuff, but the only ones to tell you about it is your NPCs. They essentially tell your story for you in the game. You being the NPC, you're telling the story through them. They become your storytellers to your players. And I think that's a very important thing not to let go lightly. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
It brings the players into the world, like, on a personal level. They're talking to people, they're interacting with people, role playing with these people. It's and it gives like the players a purpose. Like, okay, this guy, he seems really hard up and he's nervous about what's going on in this location. Okay, let's go here. I feel bad for him. And then the story progresses like that. Maybe something else happens there and there's another NPC. So it's definitely a part of the whole NPCs. Very important, I'd say.
Yeah. And what we mentioned in last I don't remember which episode it was. It might have been the world building episode that we talked about this. But anything that you can't use or have not used, or if your players completely sidestep whatever it was that you had planned initially, feel free to recycle anything that you've already established in your world and use it in a different situation. Use it in a different scenario. Always, like, if you come up with something and you think, wow, this is badass, I can't wait to introduce this to my players, and they never get around to it, introduce it somehow, some way in another situation sometime in the future. Especially if you feel like it adds something to your campaign. Whether that is storytelling or whether that is building tension or a sense of time constraint or anything substantial really for your players to interact with.
Yeah, definitely. They are the interaction points for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a hiking game.
It's a walking simulator.
Yeah.
Oh, look at all these fun little rocks and grass. How exciting.
Wow, look at that tree. What a tree.
You just stand in front of the tree for like 3 hours waiting for it to give you a quest.
Yeah.
It's not gonna.
Yeah.
Just knock on it a whole bunch. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it'll open up.
And, it's funny that we're talking about sidestepping NPCs because, again, real quick, when we first started playing my campaign, my OSC campaign, I introduced an NPC to my players who was bleeding out and dying at the entrance of the dungeon that they were in. And they had the option to save him. They had the option of forfeiting, delving into the dungeon and trying to bring him back to civilization. They could have killed him. They could have done whatever they wanted with this NPC. And I had a branching path for every conceivable decision that they made. And the one thing that I didn't expect was that they were going to heal him just enough to where he's not bleeding out and dying. And then they left him. They didn't clear out the dungeon by any means. They left this man who was healed, but his legs were mangled. He's not going to die, but now he's probably going to starve to death. He would have been better off just bleeding.
Yeah,
but now he's going to...
In reality, it was a lot worse than what we thought.
Yeah.
We couldn't carry him back. It was like, well...
I know. But so like something like that, and like initially, and I'll spoil this, I had him pegged as somebody who was going to be important to the overarching event that is that dungeon. But now it's been 2 weeks in game.
Yeah.
14 solid days since you guys left that dungeon. Most people can only survive like a few days without water.
Yeah, or food. Yeah.
Or food or whatever, like maybe a week or two at most if he's
Yeah.
not eating or drinking anything. And like, yeah.
Yeah.
I have to come up with something for that. But like that is a prime example of like things not going your way, right? So like whatever it was that I was going to use with that character specifically, I can now recycle those ideas and then inject them into a different scenario later on in the campaign if I want to.
Yeah.
For sure.
So what I'm saying is don't be discouraged if you don't get to do everything that you want to do as a DM with the plans that you have made for yourself and for the campaign.
Right. And I also feel like something as simple as that, like maybe we didn't utilize that NPC the way you wanted to, but in reality, when you first walked into the dungeon, you didn't know what you were getting yourself into. Until you lit up the area and you saw this bleeding, mangled man, and immediately now you feel this is a dangerous place. You set the scene just by having a bleeding out man in the corner, just one random NPC. We don't know what he's about, but just that guy being there, you set the scene. You know, you set the vibe.
Yeah, and he was the lucky one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
he was the
lucky
it turned
one.
out. Exactly, because he did mention to the party that he came with a party of his own, and he was the only one that he knows of that made it to the exit.
Yeah.
He's the only one, and he still only made it out barely alive, bleeding, crippled, broken bones and legs and stuff, like winded, weary. So I hope that message came across that place was very dangerous.
It did immediately.
Okay, that's
Oh, it did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah. Again, that just brings up the point of the importance of NPCs. They're just as important as anything else.
Indeed. Even if you're using their half-dead corpses as dressing for other storytelling.
Yeah.
where they don't even have to say words, just them being there tells enough of a story through context clues to sort of give the vibe of a location.
Exactly.
Yeah. Dark Souls does that a lot, too. Yeah. There's no actual words being spoken. It's just you come across a thing and you're like, wow, that's kind of screwed up.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, there you have it. There's our methods of creating NPCs, and we told some stories about our favorite NPCs and how important NPCs are for your world. I think that went pretty well. I think that was a good one, and I think we had a lot of good tips for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for listening. Again, super happy that you guys are really enjoying this. Here on Crithalla, you can, Savi he already kind of said it already. I'll just briefly go over it.
Drive it home.
Drive it home, baby. We have our,
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I was just going to say, this is why this festival is happening right now behind us. It's a celebration of Crithalla.
The whole time. It was a whole
time.
ruse.
Yeah. I used a bait and switch.
Yep, I used my NPCs to bait and switch you guys. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah.
The camera just pans back a little bit, and there's just a Crithalla banner.
Yeah.
Dun-dun-dun-dun. But yeah, you can check us out over on the YouTube channel. We post the video version of this podcast there. We also do reviews, top fives, and storytime videos. You can check us out on Facebook and Twitter. We do daily memes over there, plus some giveaways that we have been doing. You can check this podcast out at any place, pretty much Spotify, Apple Music, anything like that. If you could please leave a review and comment or anything like that about some feedback, it'd be greatly appreciated. And be on the lookout for merch coming soon. I'm still working that out, but we'll get there slowly but surely.
And of course, share this information and our content with your friends. If you know anybody who plays D&D, even if you don't play yourself and you just happen to find us somehow.
Hi.
Yeah, hi. First off,
How you doing?
Yeah, what's going on? Looking pretty fine there, watching us somewhere behind your phone screen or whatever.
Damn.
Welcome to the festival.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Welcome. Grab some funnel cake and some pulled pork nachos. That's a New York Ren Fair reference for those of you out there.
Yeah, that's a total New York Ren Fair reference.
Yeah. So, but yeah, feel free to share all of our information, and please do. Helping us grow and getting the word out about what we do here at Crithalla. Not only does it mean the world to us, starting from scratch and trying to build up something that all of us can enjoy as Dungeons and Dragons players.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Definitely.
Thank you for your support and continue to share our content.
Yes, thank you guys. Stavi, do you have any personal plugs by any chance?
Oh, boy. Well, let's see. I have my own YouTube channel. It is YouTube. You could just look up Warband Gaming. So far, the only thing I put up there recently was my live stream of me playing Project Zomboid when the new update went live with the multiplayer.
Which was great.
Did you watch that?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, no, it was cool.
I watched, and I'm subscribed, as everyone should be.
Yes.
Yeah. No.
Warband Gaming,
Yes.
baby.
No, Stop it. That's not how you plug. Stop saying no.
There's
Say
the
yes.
Crithalla banner at the festival, and all of a sudden the Warband Gaming banner slowly starts to drift down, flying together.
How'd that get here?
I don't know.
Oh,
Maybe you
no.
sponsored. I don't know.
Oh. But yeah, eventually I do plan on doing some unboxings and reviews of stuff that I have. More specifically, I have a ton of classic, basic, and advanced Dungeons and Dragons modules, like original first edition printings. And I want to kind of do, like, in the future, some thumb throughs of these modules, talk about my feelings about them, go through the content with you guys, and I have some other things coming in through Kickstarter. I mentioned this in the last podcast. I have backed a couple things on Kickstarter that are coming in the mail sometime this year, and I'm going to be doing full unboxings and first looks and stuff like that, but that probably will be posted on the Crithalla YouTube channel, so be on the lookout for that stuff, because I'm really excited for what's coming.
Yeah. Awesome,
so
man.
that's the only plugs that I have.
Very good. Very good. Now, Mike, we ask every time.
Yes.
Do you have any plugs?
Similar. I am just a member of the Crithalla Podcast, and I serve crit cakes here at the festival. They're delicious.
Oh, can I get a
you'll
taste
see
of that real
me-
quick? Can I get a little sample, maybe?
Here you go. Here's a little crit cake. It's fantastic.
Oh,
Crit cakes?
crit
Crit
cakes.
cakes.
Crit cakes?
Oh,
Crithalla crit cakes?
Yeah. Every bite is a natural 20.
wow.
For your taste buds.
That's that's a great tagline.
There you go.
Shit, I guess we're gonna have to make we're
Cakes.
opening a restaurant now, guys.
Yep, that's it.
Welcome to the Crithalla Cafe.
Well, Mike, I know I do want to get you in some storytime videos and stuff like that. Definitely soon.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I think that'd be a lot of fun that we could do together. But yeah, all right, cool. Well, thank you guys so much for checking out the Crithalla Podcast. My name is Olskit Fleck, and we will see you in the next one. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Toodles.
Bye-bye.
Bye.